So you can see now there's a bit of fluidity difference between the two of them. The axe moves in and out relatively easy. The machete binds on its flat. But on this level of wood, I can work it out pretty easy. Nope, not quite working getting two cuts. Actually, this is so slight, I can just power through it with the axe. And you can see how important it is to follow your lines with plywood because the wood just will not clear. So if you don't go down the exact same path you hit the last time, nothing will happen. Now you can notice a fairly obvious difference in the chop count between the Fiskars Axe and Magnum Kukri Machete. The reason that's happening is that this plywood is very thin, and when you're cutting into this, the only part that actually resists the cut are these two thin outer veneers. They're what exert a force on the edge, and because they're so thin, not a lot of the force when you go to chop is exerted on the edge itself. Most of the force is actually exerted on the main body of the blade. You can see it's almost a full depth of penetration. So the interesting thing is, even though this Kukri has a much heavier edge than the Fiskars, on this type of wood, where most of the force gets dissipated in the cut itself and not actually starting the cut, the Kukri Machete has significantly greater penetration and can almost outwork the axe in a chop count 2 to 1. Now in terms of actual effort, the axe is still far ahead, because as you can see, it takes quite some time to work the Kukri back out of the cut after you've made it. So the axe is still far more fluid, and the overall output is still much greater. See, like there's no way with the Kukri Machete I could open up this board in one chop, do a clear cut, one notch, do a clear cut. I won't be able to do it with this, I gotta double notch it. That's a huge knot right underneath the cut. That split right off. That's beautiful to have right in the middle of it. And of course, all it did was crack right around where the knot was. Now you can see it works fairly fluid in 2x4 type wood. This is a piece of spruce. And this is a lot harder than your natural pines, alder, most pieces of fir around here. Because as it's construction lumber, it's been heavily dried, so it's a bit harder. So for this type of wood, really comfortable cutting with the Magnum Kukri Machete. The only downside is you don't get significantly more penetration than with the regular Kukri Machete. And the reason why is that this blade is essentially too long and too slim for the amount of impact energy it comes in with. So when the blade comes in and you're hitting out here, it doesn't have the inertial moment, the raw heft, to stop a lot of the vibration and movement. So a lot of the energy of the cut is being wasted in the blade sort of moving around. And you can feel that. It just doesn't feel as stable and as solid in the hand as the regular Kukri Machete. There's no comparison. When you're cutting with the longer Magnum Kukri Machete, you can feel the greater impact coming into the wood. It just feels much more powerful. But you can also feel that power dissipate when it's going into thicker woods with the blade moving around. And this handle, in that case, could be a bit abrasive on your hands, depending on the person and a bunch of other things, of course. So for generally thicker woods, there's no comparison. The regular Kukri Machete is a much more solid bet. Simply because you can generate equal penetration with a lot less effort on your part, and it feels more comfortable in hand, it feels much more secure in hand, because you don't get the kind of vibration and movement that you do get with the Magnum Kukri Machete. Now the only thing is, I mean, unless you're directly comparing two of them, you're not going to notice really the difference. It's not like the Magnum Kukri Machete is vibrating massively in hand like this, but when I compare the two of them side by side, you can feel that the extra length on this is making it a lot more moving around when it's going into the wood. So the regular one is a lot more stable. And again, one of the reasons why you're going to get a lot of that vibration on a blade like this is because this angle right here is a lot heavier than the primary grind angle. In this case, it's 20 degrees compared to 0 degrees, which is a dramatic difference. When the blade goes into the wood like this, most of the force gets concentrated on the edge. That means in a very short period of time, you feel all that force being dissipated. There's a very large deceleration of the blade. Once you take a primary grind like this and bring it all the way out, then that force is spread out over a much wider profile. That means the deceleration is much lower, you get a smoother cut into the wood, and then the blade will feel more stable in hand, the vibration will be reduced, the handle will feel more comfortable, it'll feel more secure. Now the other thing, when you extend the primary grind up, you increase ease of sharpening dramatically, cutting ability goes up, durability would also go up because the blade is not moving around as much in the wood. You can start to back off your force, you get better control. Lots of other good things happen too when you put a nice primary grind. So all of this work is with the as boxed edge angle on the Kukri Machete, which is around 20 degrees per side. There's of course no reason why an edge angle on a chopping blade needs to be 20 degrees, and there's no reason why there should only be a single bevel and no primary grind. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the primary grind that you can see down by the handle area, sweep that up right along the blade, and I'll put a varying primary grind on it. Reduce the edge thickness down by the blade to around 10 thousandths, in the primary chopping area around 20, and up by the tip somewhere around 15. That'll give me 3 very distinct areas of cutting ability. Extremely high down by the handle, well into the main curve, and then a bit better up by the tip for clearing light brush. And at that point it will become a very versatile blade. And so both these machetes, the Magnum Kukri Machete, 2 very solid blades, but 2 completely very different blades. And I don't know why they call this the Magnum Kukri Machete, which would sort of imply it's a heavier duty model than the other one. It's not. It's just a completely different blade. It's much more suited It's basically more of a light machete, where the other one is more of a very stout parang. They're two completely different blades. So there's that.